warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning. Today we are going to look into a new topic, real property gains tax, or what we call RPGT, right? So real property gains tax is a different act. It's not under income tax, it's under RPGT Act 1976. Yeah, so all this while we have been looking at Income Tax Act 1967, but now we are looking at RPGT Act 1976. So it's a totally different act. It's a mutually exclusive. Alright? So what it talks about is on tax on capital gain. So all this income tax is on tax on income. So your income from your employment, from your business, from your investment. But here we are talking about income on the capital gains arising from disposal of properties. Alright, or share or landed properties. The RPGT Act 1976 was legislated, alright, to impose RPGT on gains arising from the disposal of real properties, alright, in Malaysia. It means that if you have a property outside Malaysia, it's not subject to RPGT in Malaysia. Alright, it's imposed on the territorial concept. It does not apply to disposal of land overseas. Alright, in situation of disposal of landed property, there is a possibility of income tax or RPGT, depending on whether the land is a short-term or long-term investment. It means that you have to look at the scenario. Looking at the real property, is it your short-term or is it your long-term asset? Short-term asset means that it's your inventories. If you are in the business of buying and selling of land, so selling of land or disposal of land will not attract RPGT, but it will attract income tax. Why? Because the land is your inventory, so that is your business income. But if the land is your long-term asset, it means that you hold the land for a period of time, and then after several years, then only you want to dispose of the land, then that will attract RPGT. Alright? It's both mutually exclusive, thus if a transaction is subject to income tax, RPGT will not apply. And RPGT would be on the current calendar year. So it means that if you are given a scenario, alright, you have a land and then the land was disposed of, and then whether the gain is subject to RPGT or income tax. So that is normally a question, alright, on a theoretical basis, where you have to justify whether the income is subject to RPGT or the income is subject to income tax based on your explanation. Yeah, so that is on the introduction. On the real property, what do you mean by real property? Right, so real property here, alright, is defined in section 2 of RPGT to mean any land, yeah, situated in Malaysia, and any interest, option, or other right in or over such land. Land is further defined to include the surface of the earth and all substance forming that surface. The earth below the surface, buildings on land, so it means that your buildings is also RPGT. Yeah, and anything attached to land or permanently fastened to anything attached to land, whether on or below the surface, standing timber, trees, shrubs, and other vegetation growing on land, and land covered by water. Right, so all these are real property. So when we talk about when is RPGT, when there is a disposal, it means that you may have acquired a property, alright, real properties, and after some time you dispose of that real property. So the exposure to RPGT is when you dispose of. Right? It means that we are taxing that real property gains tax, tax on the gain. So it means that if you dispose of, you see whether there's a gain on the disposal or not. So how do you know whether there's a gain or loss? Then you are going to look into, alright, when you first purchase, you acquire the real property. So we call it as an acquisition. Alright? Then after some time, it could be years, because normally we're talking about long-term asset, it takes years to hold the asset. So when you dispose, then you have the disposal here. Alright, so what happens is that you want to see whether there's a gain on the disposal, then you have to look at when you first acquire the asset, what is your acquisition price? Okay? When you dispose of the asset, what is your disposal price? So you're going to combine your AP and your DP. So in other words, if your disposal price, then compare with your acquisition price, then we say whether there's a gain on disposal. This gain we call it as a chargeable gain. Right? Chargeable gain. So this is the gain that is taxable. So it's very easy lah, kita tengok acquisition price, disposal price, dan dapat chargeable gain. Yeah? So that's it actually under RPGT. But why make it so difficult? Because this acquisition price and the disposal price is a statutory concept. It means that the law states that what comprised of acquisition price, what is comprised of disposal price. It's not simply, okay, I sell 300,000, then that is my disposal price. Not necessarily, because there's a statutory definition, right? So we talked about acquisition price. What do you mean by acquisition price? So you have to follow the law. So acquisition price is made up of this, and this. Yeah. So at the end of the day, what you do is that you compare your acquisition price and your disposal price. You get your chargeable gain, and then, right, there will be some kind of exemptions given. Right, there could be some exemptions. Alright, so exemption is given as a deduction. Whatever you have here, the balance, then you times by the RPGT rate. Right, so overall, actually, it's all about computation of your RPGT payable. Yeah, so you compare your disposal price and acquisition price, you have a chargeable gain. So it means that maybe you're talking about properties. Is it appreciate or depreciate in value? Properties. Most of the time, properties appreciate in value. So if you want to invest in properties, because you know that, alright, roughly we say that in Malaysia, the price of the property doubles in 10 years time. So it means that if you first purchase in year 1, the property costs you 300,000, in 10 years time, the value is 600,000 minimum. Alright, I have actually had properties, alright, my property doubles less than 10 years. Again, it depends on the logistic. Yeah. Location, and location. But generally, when you have a property, there will be appreciation in value. So, for example, you first purchase it at 300,000. Let's say you acquire at 300,000, but when you dispose of, you can sell at say 150,000, for example. Right? Then you have a 350 chargeable gain. Right? And then given exemption, let's say exemption is 10%. So later we look into this topic under exemption. So let's say the exemption is 35,000, then you have the balance of how much? 315,000. So this 315,000 you times by the RPGT rate. So where you have your RPGT payable. So overall, it talks about this formula only. Yeah. Okay. Can you have a loss? Yes, you may have a loss here. It means that maybe the location of the property is so bad, right? Or maybe disposal of the asset is within a very short period of time, so you don't have time to appreciate in value. So maybe when you first sell, alright, it was 300, then I don't know, very unlikely that you can sell at 250. Very unlikely. So in this case, you have a loss, right? So this loss is what we call allowable loss. Yeah, later we look into more detail, so I'm just giving you the overall picture of this topic. You may have a chargeable gain, you may also have allowable loss. So when you have a loss, how are you going to treat that losses? Alright, there's a way for you to treat these losses, because again, in tax, loss is very important. Yeah, we can always use it to set off against our future tax liability. Right, so we look into that losses as well. So let's go into the talk where we say about what is acquisition price. Yeah. Again, it says that it's a statutory defined concept. Statutory means that it has to be based on the law. Right? It says that acquisition price of real property comprised of the following components. Right? So number one is that consideration paid wholly and exclusively for the acquisition of real property. So it means that if you want to purchase a house, you must know how much is the price of the house. Alright, so whatever amount, for example, then that will be your amount you paid for the house. Right, so that is number one. And, so bila and tu maknanya dia plus lah. Alright, plus incidental cost incurred on the acquisition of real property which includes stamp duty, legal fees, tax agent's fees, remuneration paid to land surveyor or valuer for land valuation, and advertisement costs for seeking a seller of required property. So all this is what we call incidental costs. Right? So let's go into acquisition price. Yeah. So your AP equals to consideration paid, right, plus incidental cost, right? So when you want to purchase a property, right, you not only you have to pay for the price of the house, but you also have to incur other costs, a lot, all right? That's why you have to prepare some amount of cash in order for you to pay for all this, because normally, right, when you want to buy a house, you go for a bank loan, right? So it's a good investment because bank will normally give you, if you have a good credit ratio, right, they give you 90% loan. You only have to pay 10% of the price. That's why we call that is a 90-10, right? So the bank will pay 90% of the house price, and you only have to come up with the 10%. And this 10% normally, if you have enough amount in your EPF, you can actually withdraw from your account number 2. You can withdraw to get that 10%. So if you had the house cost you 350,000, you only have to pay up 35,000 to the developer, for example, right? But other costs, for example, stamp duty for the documents, legal fees, right? And then you have tax agent's fees sometimes, which is not, yeah, it depends. And remuneration paid. So sometimes you have to, if you want to sell the house or if you want to buy the house, you may want to have to pay for the valuation fee. All right, if the court, if it's talking about, okay, property, we have the first hand and second hand. Secondary market means that it's already ready, all right, it's already purchased by someone, then you buy second hand. So you have to value, is it really the cost is 350,000? Is that the market value? So that's why you pay for the valuation fees. So all these costs you have to pay, and this cost we call it as a incidental cost. And remember the cost here, incidental cost in acquiring the property. Alright? So that is, but remember that it says that legal fees on the loan agreement to finance acquisition price is not an incidental cost. Alright? When you take up loan, alright, you have to pay legal fees as well on the loan, because you have to prepare a contract or between you and the bank. So that legal fees on the finance of the house is not incidental cost. It should not be. And then on top of that, we have interest costs. It means that when you take up loan, let's say that the loan is 300,000. Let's assume the loan is 300,000. So normally you have interest on the loan. Let's say the interest is 10%. So you have to pay every year 10% on the loan. So that interest, alright, is not incidental cost. Alright, you have to pay the interest loan until you finish the loan. Alright, that interest is not incidental cost. It's no longer, yeah. Previously it was, but effective from 2010, interest has been paid on loan used to acquire the real property, which is on a work in progress, no longer available as part of incidental cost of purchase. It does not form part of the component of acquisition price of the real property. It means that higher chargeable gain will be imputed upon the disposal. It means that previously the interest on loan is part of your incidental cost. Now it's no longer. So when you look at the disposal price minus acquisition price is your chargeable gain, right? So acquisition price, previously it was higher, but now it's lower because you cannot claim any more interest expense. So when here is low, then your chargeable gain will be higher. It means that you have to pay more RPGT. Why? Because you can no longer take that interest expense as part of your incidental cost. Yeah. Okay, next, interest cost. So when you look in the textbook, whenever you have these in the box, what does it mean? It was for the previous years or preceding a law. So it's no longer applicable. So we may not have to do what input tax is on the GST. So now because we are no longer at the GST, so this input tax and output tax is no longer applicable. Alright, so you may skip that block. Okay. Okay, then we have so this one is the GST. Capital receipts from real property. Alright. So it says that capital receipts from real property, how you see it is that, so you have the period when you first acquire the asset, right? When you acquire and when you dispose of the asset, you do have several period of years. It could be number of years here. So during this period, if there is any capital receipts during this period, alright, capital receipts. Right? What is capital receipt? For example, compensation received for any kind of damages to the real property, insurance recovery for loss or damages to the real property, or deposit forfeited in connection with aborted disposal of real property. So example here is that this capital receipt. Number one is that you have a link house, right? And then suddenly your neighbor makes some renovation, and that renovation affect some damages in your house. For example, maybe your wall is cracked. So all these, alright, because the renovation is made by the neighbor, so the neighbor has to pay damages to you. So you receive capital receipts, right? So compensation receipt for any kind of damages, either by the developer or by the neighbors, anything that you receive, alright, that is what we call compensation receipt. Or number two, insurance recovery. For example, if there is any, okay, when you want to purchase property, normally you will have some kind of insurance, right? Minimum is life insurance, or maybe you take up a fire insurance, for example. So in the case where you take up a fire insurance and then you have a fire on the building. So what happened, because it was insured, right? So the insurance company will have to compensate you for the damages. So that is what we call insurance recovery or insurance compensation. So what you understand is that whenever you have this capital receipt, means that you receive money. But is it annually? No, it's a capital receipt. Means that whenever things happen, then you get the money. And the third one, deposit forfeited, means that when you want to dispose of the property, there could be a potential buyer. Alright, we're talking about property. If you have someone intended to buy the property, of course you have to pay some deposit or a booking money, right? Because otherwise, if you want to buy, then you have to lock the house. I cannot sell it to anyone else, so they have to pay you deposit, certain amount. So what happened is that if they have paid you deposit, so for example you have received 10,000 ringgit as a deposit, and because you know the process of buying a house, for example, let's say for example you want to take up a loan, alright? So you have paid me 10,000 ringgit, and then you are going to go for bank loan for the house. What happened is that if the bank loan was rejected, then you cannot proceed with the buying of the house, right? So it could be, so for so many reasons the bank loan is not approved. So what happened is that, oh, I cannot proceed with the purchase of the house because I don't have enough money to pay for the house. So what happened? That money deposited is forfeited. So that money forfeited is also fall under capital receipts. So what is the importance of these capital receipts? Whatever money that you receive, right, and the capital receipts is given as a deduction here, minus capital receipts. Alright, so when you have that, alright, you have your consideration paid for the house, any incidental cost, and any capital receipt received. This is your acquisition price. So when I say that acquisition price is a statutory concept, so it's not simply the amount that you pay for the house, but it's comprised of these 1, 2, and 1 and 2. Okay? Alright. So let's look at an example here. Mr. Yuan Fat acquired a bungalow for a consideration of 350,000. Right? You acquired consideration 350,000. The sum was paid in full on 20th of August 2017. The bungalow was transferred to him on 10 of December 2017. There was no written agreement for the purchase of the bungalow. Other costs incurred by Yuan Fat were as follows: stamp duty on transfer, cost of extension to bungalow, and interest on mortgage loan. In January 2019, Mr. Yuan Fat received 30,600 from a developer as compensation for damages to his bungalow caused by piling work carried out on the adjacent land. In addition to that, Mr. Yuan Fat also received 11,200 from the insurance company for the said damage. In September 2019, he received a forfeited deposit of 10,000 from a potential buyer who eventually called off the deal. See? So all this information will allow you to compute the acquisition price. Yeah, for example, here it says that the combination of acquisition price for the bungalow would be as follows. One is the acquisition price, the consideration you paid for the house, which is 350,000, and then you only have stamp duty on transfer 3,005. What happened to your cost of extension? Is the acquisition price? No, because it's none of these three items. Alright, even though it's a cost to you, but that is not your acquisition price. It doesn't fall into any of those. What about interest on mortgage loan? No. Previously, yes, but now it's no longer part of incidental cost. So in this case, your acquisition price is only 353,000. But not yet, not finished yet. Minus compensation. Alright, means that minus your capital receipts. You have many capital receipts here. Number one is the compensation receipt, which is 30,600, insurance recovery, and your deposit forfeited. So total capital receipt is 51,800, and this amount is deducted. Then this is actually your acquisition price. Not this one, but this one. Remember that is the consideration paid plus incidental cost minus your capital receipt. So that is your acquisition price. Is that clear? Alright, so now what it says that market value on 1st January 2000. So it says that it was legislated, remember RPGT 1976, so that was long ago. About how? Berapa tahun dah? Sekarang 2000. Umur. Okay? So it's been so long, alright, and has been operating for 43 years, is there. Yeah? The initial benchmark value was made to 1970 and is now re-established to 1st January 2000, effective from 1st January 2019. So this is very recent. So your textbook is YE 2019. So this one is the most recent textbook because that refers to the recent tax law. So RPGT, that's why, alright, you have to refer to the latest tax law. Right, even you're talking about income tax or you're talking about RPGT Act, that's why I always tell you that you have to have the latest textbook because that reflects the latest law. If you use the 2018 edition, then the content will not be the same as the 2019 edition because there are a lot of tax changes, right, regard to RPGT. Alright, then we have the action price. It says that market value as at 1st January 2000 would be the deemed acquisition price for the real property acquired prior to 2000. It means that if you acquired the property in 2000, let's say 2012, right, and now 2020, you want to sell the house in 2020. So if it's in 2012, then you have to follow this formula. But if you want to purchase the asset, the property prior to 2000, right, then you have to use the market value as at 1st January 2000 to be your acquisition price. No longer you apply this formula. Alright, again, for the property purchase prior to 1st January 2000, you have to take the market value as at 1st January 2000. How would you know the market value as at 1st January 2000 of that house? You have to go to the local authority. Alright, because for example here, this area is under, is it Selayang or Ampang? Not sure. Alright, let's say it's under Selayang authority. Local authority is the Majlis Perbandaran Selayang. Ada? Okay, then you have to go to them and check what your area, your house, what is the market value as at 1st January 2000. So that would be the acquisition price of the house. You may have purchased the house in 1998, but the market value would be for 2,000. Yeah, the acquisition price of the house would be the market value as at 1st January 2000. Is it better or not? So most likely disposal price, acquisition price, I only have to draw this. So assuming that your 1998 price will be lower than 2000, isn't it? Agree? Because in 1998, 2000, the market value, the value of the house will increase in 2 years' time. So I assume the acquisition price will be higher. Disposal price minus acquisition price, this one will be lower. So it's good for the taxpayer rather than to compare acquisition price in 1998, because the law says that anything that you purchase before 2000, you have to use the market value as at 1st January 2000. So what happens is that in the question, maybe they will give you the market value of the house. Then you have to decide, am I supposed to use the market value or am I supposed to use the formula? Okay? Alright, other than that, alright, we do have, this one is the previous year. Alright, these are the mathematical component of your acquisition price, where acquisition paid plus incidental cost minus your. So your incidental cost could come from stamp duty, legal fees, tax agent's fee, land valuation fees, advertisement and interest expense. But remember that this interest expense is no longer, it's no longer as a deduction. Last compensation, this one is your capital receipt, then you have your acquisition price. Okay? Alright, excluded expenditure. Alright, you can skip this one first. Alright, what it says here. Revenue, any revenue expenditure allowable under the Act is not allowable under RPGT. Alright? Alright, this one is up to GST, so we can skip this one. So let's go into the disposal price. Right, you know already what is your acquisition price. Let's go into your disposal price. Remember that the disposal price is the price that you pay when you dispose of the house, but again, it's a statutory defined concept. Right, comprise consideration received for the disposal and reduced by the following components. Right, so let's see your disposal. Right, so when we talk about when you dispose of the money that you receive, we call it as a consideration received. When you first acquire, you have to pay, we call it as a consideration paid. So when you sell, alright, you have consideration received. So how much you sell the house for, set as your consideration received. But the law says that you minus. The first one is what we call capex. Right, so let's see the formula for disposal price. Your consideration received minus capital expenditure for the enhancement of the real property will refer to renovation costs and cost of construction of building on the land. So it means that consideration received minus capex. Alright, and this capex is to enhance the value of the property. So it means that when you first purchase, maybe you just purchase a single house, for example, it's a house, at least you have to do some renovation, alright? So whenever you dispose, alright, the renovation could be in many times, right? It could be here, it could be here, it could be here. So all this capital expenditure that you incurred will be part of your capex. So it's a deduction, right? Number two is that you may purchase a land, then you build a house. So the cost of building construct the building is part of capex, because you first purchase only the land. Now when you want to sell the land plus the building, so the cost of the building is the enhancement to the land. So that's why that will also be part of your capex. Legal fees in establishing, preserving or defending the title of the land, right? So once you have you purchase an asset or property, when you first acquired, alright, you only have to pay all that, but the title of the house you will not get immediately. Why? Remember you purchased using the bank loan? So the title is still under the banks, not your house yet, right? But after some time, alright, the bank will transfer, or what we call the transfer the strata title to the owners, right? And for that you have to pay a lot of fees. For example, you have to pay for the legal fees, alright, or maybe there's some other people that fight over the same land. Now you have to pay for the preservation of the, or to defend the title of the land. So all this cost is part of this. I would call this one is for the title. Anything to do with the title of the land. Yeah, title of land. Any cost you incur to preserve or to defend the title of the land. And finally, you are going to minus any incidental cost. And remember, this cost, incidental cost, is in relation to the disposal. Tadi you nak acquire kan? Now you want to dispose, you still have to pay for the stamp duty. You may have to pay for the commission fees. You may have to pay for valuation fees. But in this scenario, it's for the disposal of the asset. Previously, in acquiring the asset. So it's two different things. Yeah. So whatever cost you incur, so sometimes they give you a mix of all the costs. Then you have to decide which one is the incidental cost for the disposal, which one is incidental cost for the acquisition. Yeah. So that would be the formula for your disposal price. So that's why I say even though it's just DP minus AP, but to come out with these, right, students sometimes have some confusion, right? They love, right? Things are, I think it's very straightforward, right? But dia saja nak tukar sama kan? Creative. Okay, let's see for the example. It's using 36.1 just now, the same example. We have Yuan Fat sold his bungalow for 500,000. So sold bungalow means that is your consideration received. Yeah? As evidenced by the sale and purchase agreement dated 15 September 2019. The consideration was paid to him on 1st October 2019, incurred the following expenditure in connection with the sale: valuation fees, cost of advertisement, brokerage fees, and legal fees for defending the title. So as you go along, then you say, oh, this one is the cost, this one is incidental cost, right? And then the disposal price will be as follows. So you have the disposal price 500,000 is the consideration received, less permitted expenses, in this case is cost of the extension, which is 50,000. Where do you get this 50,000 from? 36.1. Remember, you have this. Where is it? Yeah. Cost of extension to bungalow 50,000. Right? So don't forget that. So here, where is it? Okay. Extension 50,000, and then you have legal fees to defend the title. Mana legal fees? 4,100. And then you also have incidental costs of the disposal, where you have this valuation fee, cost of advertisement, brokerage fees. Right? These three items is your incidental cost. So all this is deducted from your consideration received. 500 minus 54,100 minus 2,500, you should get 425,400 as your disposal price. Still remember what was your acquisition price tadi? So they're from two computation kan? So one disposal price is 425,400, and your acquisition price was, is it here? Is it? Niat? 30,301,700. Is that a gain?
Yes.
Kita panggil chargeable. Chargeable gain. Chargeable gain, how much is that? 1,2,3,700. It's a gain. Kalau gain kena bayar tax tak? Yes. Then how to compute tax? Again? Times by the RPGT rate. Why to get the RPGT rate? Okay? RPGT rate depends on the holding period. Holding period. So mana you acquire and you dispose kan? The longer is the holding period, the lower is your RPGT rate. So the shorter is the holding period, the higher is the RPGT rate. Okay, so let's see that let's go into that RPGT rate. Where is it? Here is it. On page, where is the page? 596. This is a table effective from 1st January 2019. Right, so this one is the latest tax rate for RPGT. We have 3 types of categories. We have individual, so means that RPGT means, right, you have to see the disposer, because it's on the disposer or acquirer. Who is exposed to RPGT? Acquirer or disposer? The disposer. Because you may have 2 parties now. I could be the acquirer, you are the disposer. So yang kena bayar tax is the disposer, because the disposal of the properties. So on the disposer, then you disposer tu kena tengok lah bila dia acquire, bila dia dispose. Faham tak? So there are 2 parties now. So the disposer is an individual who is a citizen of Malaysia. Kita pakai resident status ya. Resident is under income tax. This one is under RPGT dipanggil citizen. Malaysian citizen or Malaysian non-citizen, or permanent resident. So we have many Singaporean who are permanent residents, right? They have many properties in Malaysia. So if they dispose of any properties in Malaysia, then they are also subject to RPGT. Okay, but if they are Malaysian permanent resident, dispose property in Singapore, subject to RPGT? No. Why? Outside Malaysia. The properties is outside Malaysia, so it's not subject. Alright, the rate here is that it says that if the property disposal is less or equals to 3 years, so any disposal within 3 years, the tax rate is 30%. Banyak tak? Yeah. What is the highest income tax rate? 28%, the latest one. Right? And RPGT within 3 years is 30%. What happened within 3 years? Kenapa you not buy and sell within 3 years? Some people, right, buy properties, those tend to be a lot of cash, right? Cash key. So they buy property because when they first purchase the property from the developer, it's very cheap. But once the property is completed, right, then the price will jump, spike, right? So the difference between when you first purchase, you acquire, and the disposal price will be very high. Right, so in that case, but what happened is that because if people keep on buying and selling the property within short period of time, then the price of houses will inflate. That's why now you have a lot of properties, right? But the price is too much, nobody can afford to buy, because why? They're already at the second, third market, right? But people purchase when it was developed, sell first hand, then sell second hand, then the price is already high. So if you want to dispose, nobody wants to buy, but they are not willing to reduce the price. So that's why you have so many houses which are vacant. It's owned, but not. It's not vacant. It's not what occupied, right? Because these people who buy, they are the big cash keep. They won't stay in a link house, right? They have a bungalow to stay. Why should they stay in it? So that those houses are vacant, yeah. And it's very difficult to sell because the price is too high already. Nobody will. But if you sell it in the 4th year, then it drops by 10% to 20%. But here, non-resident, right, permanent resident, they stay 30%, right? It's very high for them. In the 5th year, now become 50%, and more than 5 years now is 5%. Previously, right, before 2019, remember this one is 2019. Previously, right, this one until 2018. See, this one is from 2014 to 2018. If more than 5 years, nil, you don't have to pay tax. But now, even if you hold the house for 30 years, you still have to pay 5% tax. Yeah. Right. Is it good? Of course, it's not good lah. Yeah. But that's how it is lah. Right. Then here is still 10% more than 5 years. But for companies, the rate is similar. Right? How to say? This one is 30, 20, 15 sama kat sini. But here after 5 years is 10% for companies. So you have to see whether the disposer is a company or an individual. Alright, and others, alright, you have to apply this rate just similar to a individual. Alright, so it's a citizen or a permanent resident. So that's the tax rate. So how will you know the tax rate, which one to apply? Is it within 3 years ke, in the 4th year ke? Because we are talking about holding period. So how you decide on the holding period? Then we want to look at the acquisition date and the disposal date. Then only you know the holding period. Right? So how are you going to decide? Now there are two. Right? Is there any written agreement? If there is a written agreement, means that there's a sales and purchase agreement, just take that date. Alright? If you acquire at that time, there's a written agreement, then what is the state? What is the date of the S&P? That will be your acquisition date. When you dispose of, there is a written agreement, then take the date on the disposal as what stated under the agreement. So it's very clear. Okay? So if there is an agreement, is a written, then you take the SN, sales and purchase agreement. But if it's not written, alright, this one very common in the villages, for example. It's just a verbal. Alright, there's no any written agreement. It's very difficult. But we have to find a solution for that. If there is no written agreement, without any, okay, if there's a written agreement, you have to follow the S&P. Without written agreement, the disposal date shall be the date of completion of the disposal of the asset, whichever is the earlier, right? The date in which the ownership of the disposed asset is transferred, alright, ownership transferred by the disposer, or the date on which the disposer has received the whole amount, 100%, or value of the consideration for the transfer. Whichever is earlier, means that the transfer of ownership or full payment. Right? So whichever is earlier, that would be. So using 36.1, let's see. Okay. Masa dia beli, Mr. Yuan Fat acquired a bungalow. The sum was paid in full on 20th of August. And the bungalow was transferred to him on 10th of December. Ini acquisition date or disposal date? Acquisition date. So acquire the asset, is it on the 20th of August or 10th of December? 20th of August, because whichever is earlier. Transfer or pay in full on 20th of August, but transfer on 10th of December. So whichever earlier, 20th of August, that will be your acquisition date. Right? So you have 20th of August 2017. So let's see when is the disposal date. 36.2. Is it here? Okay. Mr. Yuan Fat sold bungalow as evidenced by sale and purchase agreement. Is that a written agreement or unwritten? Written. So bila 15th of September 2019. So that will be your disposal date. Right? 15th of September 2019. So now you know that for this property, Mr. Yuan Fat acquired 20th August 2017, disposed on 15th September 2019. How long is the holding period? Huh? How you want to compute that? Assuming that it could be for later period. So you must have the basis lah macam mana nak kira the holding period. So what you do is that you have the acquisition date 20th of August 2017. Full 1 year when? What is the? Bila? Full 1 year. 90. The 1 day before that. 19 August 2018. This is one full year. If you purchase on 20th of August 2017, full year is on the 19th, one day before that, August 2018. Another is, this is first year, right? Complete 1 year. Then you have 19 August 2019 will be full second year. Okay? But when did you sell? 15 September 2019, which is after this date, 15 September 2019, and this one is in the third year. Is it complete 3 years? No. Not yet, because this one is not complete 1 year, is 19 of August 2020. This one is 2 years plus, or what we say is within 3 years. So if within 3 years, which tax rate that you have to use?
50%.
The first one, which is less than 3 years. Oh, jatuh ni. Suka. Are you using Dettol as your sanitizer? Okay. Alright, so that would be which rate then? Assuming that Yuan Fat is a citizen, 30% lah, because the holding period is less than 3 years. So you have to use 30%. So let's see if I say that you dispose on 22nd of June 2023. Lama sangat. 2021. Okay, what's the tax rate for that? Hmm? 20? Is it in the 4th year or 5th year? So let's see. So assume that the date, acquisition date is still the same. Alright, first year, second year means that 2020 of 19 August is the third year, but you dispose on 22nd of June, which is right before this, isn't it? 2021, because full year is 19th of August, so you're already in the 4th year, even though it's not complete, but you're already in the 4th year. So you fall in the 4th year, the rate is 20%. Right? So that's how you compute how you determine what is the tax rate, and that amount, this date depends whether there's a written agreement or there's no written agreement. Yeah? So that covers for your computation. So just now, chargeable gain here, right? If you are, then you may say that, okay, times by 30%. So you get your RPGT payable. Okay? But there's an exemption. Right? Exemption given, provided that exemption given to individual, which is on page 595. Right? Exemption to individual, it means that only individual qualifies for this exemption. If the company, then there's no exemption, so you just times chargeable gain times by 30%. But in this case, Mr. Yuan Fat is an individual, whether individual resident or not, or citizen or not, is disregarded. As long as you are an individual, then you are entitled for this exemption. Individual disposing real property on or after 2010. Yeah? Take the note, on January, on or after 1st January 2010, would be given 10% of the chargeable gain or 10,000 ringgit, whichever is higher. Alright, so the exemption given here is 10% or 10,000 ringgit, whichever is higher. So if you were to see here, what would be the exemption? How much is the exemption for this, for Yuan Fat?
12,000.
Is it 12,370 or 10,000?
12,000.
12,370, which is 10% of this chargeable gain. Because the law said that is a 10% of 10,000 ringgit, whichever is higher. So 10,000 or 12,000, this one is higher. So you claim this as your exemption, right? So the balance here, whatever balance that you have, then only you times by 30%. Right? And again, it's only for individuals. If a company, there's no exemption. Whichever is higher. WIH. Right? Whichever is higher. So you see here the example that your chargeable gain minus your exemption, then times by the tax rate, then you have your RPGT variable. An individual need not be Malaysian citizen in order to enjoy the exemption. Means that as long as you are an individual disposing real property in Malaysia, you should be able to get that 10% or 10,000 exemption. Alright, it does not apply to partnership or a company. Even an executor has been held to be a legal personality created by statute and not an individual. Right. What happens is that if you have a large area of property and your disposal is only part of that. You get that? Normally tak adalah you jual satu house, you jual 1/4 of the house, no, right? But you're talking about land, for example. So you have a big land and then you only sell part of the land. So the issue with regard to exemption, you nak bagi exemption macam mana? Yeah. So we effect from 2013, Schedule 4. Schedule 4 ni kita panggil this one lah, exemption to individual ni kita panggil Schedule 4 exemption, ya. But dia ada banyak lagi exemption later. So you have to know what kind of exemption is given. So here it says that Schedule 4 exemption is available to part disposal of land. The amount exempted in respect of the part disposal will be determined as follows: A over B times by C. Okay. What is A, B and C? Where A is the area, part of the area, and B is the total area, C is 10,000 or 10% of the chargeable gain, whichever is higher. Take note that effective from 2015, say there's a lot of tax law changes here. Effective from 2015, the C component, the 10,000 or 10%, alright, we only define that to be 10,000 ringgit. Okay, so now it means that if you have partial, so you A over B times by 10,000, compare that with 10% of your chargeable gain, whichever is higher. You get that? A over B times by 10,000, compare that with 10% of your chargeable gain, whichever higher, that is your exemption. Okay? The amended schedule relation to part will now be A, B over times by 10,000 or 10%, whichever is higher. So that will be the exemption for a partial disposal. Should we stop here or not? Yes. Okay, we stop here and we'll continue the lecture in the next one. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.